Howdy and welcome back to the Ineligibles podcast. My name is Will Stone at Will Stone CFB on Twitter. You can follow our page on YouTube. Just type in the Ineligibles podcast or youtube.com/ at ineligible same thing for Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that kind of stuff. Uh, Still trying to push YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast, of course. But YouTube, you can see us live every Monday and Wednesday night around 8:30. Tonight we're doing 8:30. Typically we'll be in that ballpark. Trying to get guests on Wednesdays. Monday probably more solo throughout the season. But from now until whenever the championship game is, I think it's still the same. Maybe even later in the year now with the new playoff. But from now until then, twice a week. You know. So yeah, we're excited. We're 12 days out from Notre Dame. It is getting really, really real. Yeah, I'm pumped, and it took us a while to get here. Baseball helped us out along the way, but it's football season. I've been watching preseason games, the Cowboys, the Bears, the Texans. You name it. It's been it finally feels like we've made it through, and yeah, it's here. So. Um, won't go too long today, but definitely some things that we need to talk about and get into. Some fall camp stuff, and we're going to go national a little bit at the end with a little buy, sell, hold. I will find the sound effect for that we used to have. I have misplaced it, so we'll get that next time. But fall camp. So Mike Elko spoke to the media on Saturday, confirmed the injury to Reuben Owens is very likely to be a season ender. Didn't say what it was. I think he said either lower body or maybe he even said foot. I think he said foot injury. Um, and he did mention that if the season ran longer than, you know, I'm not sure what his exact words were, but basically if we get into, January and we're still playing, he said there's a chance that Ruben could come back at that point. But for all intents and purposes, he will not be playing, unless we do make it that far, and that's up in the air as well. So um, it sucks for him. You know, hope he makes a fast comeback, full recovery, and can tear it up in 2025 because we're gonna need him. So um, other fall camp stuff. Uh, I think fall camp ends either like today or tomorrow, and it's really just like starting their game prep for Notre Dame. But fall camp, I thought there's been some interesting news out there with regards to position battles, position groups, different guys in different spots, and just wanted to kind of go through that with you guys and give you my thoughts on that. But the guy that we need to talk about first is Terry Bussey. So we talked about him this offseason, and I think after the spring game, Robert and I talked, and we were like, hey, like Terry Bussey wasn't here in the spring. He's the highest rated player from the incoming signing class, 5-star, top 10 or 15 player in the country. And he's kind of a do it all guy. Like he played at a small school, Timpson, 2A school, and was quarterback, defensive back, did all that kind of stuff. But Elko's intent, I think, was to for the or his I think his intent is in the long term for Bussey to be a corner, which he could very well be and could be an NFL draft pick as a corner. But Robert and I were talking and we're like, hey, with a Jabri Barber breaking his foot and being out for a long time, which they think he may come back maybe mid-season, maybe a little bit sooner. So that's something to watch. Slot receiver out of Troy, transfer. But but Terry Bussey were like, hey, we actually brought in a lot of defensive backs, a lot of corners, a lot of older guys and talented guys, and maybe we don't need to play our, you know, exciting young talent, 5-star kid at corner where he's maybe, maybe he's trying to learn the position, like the nuances of playing corner. Where on offense, where we really need help, just get the ball in his hands and just let him do his thing. Um, which and we heard Elko, we heard Colin Klein talk about it in their press conferences on Saturday. But sounds like he is getting reps on offense. There's been so in practices the offense wears maroon, the defense wears white. Bussey was in a white jersey the first week. I think he has been in a maroon jersey ever since. So perhaps even getting the majority of his reps on offense. And I think he can be an impacted kick returner as well. But Terry Bussey, if you don't know about him, not a like you might hear all this and be like, oh, he's a smaller like slot type guy, maybe like an Ananias. That's not the case at all. I mean, if you look at pictures of him in practice, he's listed at 6 foot 195. Just looks like $1,000,000. Looks like he is a third or fourth year college player getting ready to go to the NFL, and he's just. I think Coach Elko kept saying this summer that he was still 17. Maybe he just had a birthday. Maybe he just turned 18. But just a really impressive looking athlete. And you look at his credentials. On 247, they have him verified as a sophomore, running a 10.6 in the 100 meter. A-Chain ran a 10.2, so just a little bit behind that as a sophomore, so probably as a 15-year-old. And then there's no more times for him since then. They do say that he's verified sub 4.5 in the 40, so probably in the 4.4, maybe even lower range at this point. But to me, he was just like he was the quarterback for Timpson. I think I saw somewhere in his if you go to his page on 24/7 Sports, he scored like over 70 touchdowns as a junior. Missed some time as a senior and then came back and then led them to a state title. Just crushed. I can't even remember who they played, but it was on TV, state championship, and Bussey just had a field day against those guys. So to me, I think with what Colin Klein, his kind of creativity on offense, I think what you can do with Bussey is, use him like a Percy Harvin type. This guy can return kicks for you. He can return punts even. You can line him up in the backfield and hand the ball to him. You can get him on jet sweeps, on screens. Just send him on a go route. He's fast. He's got hands. Like he can, maybe he's not running the full route tree, and maybe he is. I don't know. For everything I've heard, he's a pretty sharp kid. I think. I want to misspeak here. I need to go look this up, but I think he was valedictorian. I could be wrong, but a sharp kid nonetheless. And I think for the way he can help this team the most is on offense, and I think that's a pretty exciting possibility, and one that they are very heavily pursuing at this point. It seems so. I think my buddy Kyle is listening. Kyle was a big fan of Tavon Austin. Terry Bussey can be A&M's Tavon Austin. Maybe not the ridiculous highlight reel that guy had, but man, he's just an incredible athlete. He's got the size, he's got the speed, he's got the ability to catch the football. I'm fairly certain he played receiver in the All-American game, the Under Armour one, and some guy said he was the best receiver out there. So it's a no-brainer for the way this roster looks to put him on offense and see what he can do. Kyle commented, he said he still blames Jeff Fisher for ruining Tavon Austin's career. I can't can't say I disagree too much there. So that's, I think if you're looking for something to that you may not have expected to be excited about when we take the field against Notre Dame, I would expect, it wouldn't shock me at all if he returns, if A&M gets the ball first, if he returns the opening kick. Not for a score. I'm just saying I think he's going to be your primary kick returner. I don't know about punts. Punts a little bit different. You're really worried about the guy dropping it and maybe getting some nerve. So you could see a Moose Muhammad, sure-handed guy like that, catching punts. But man, watch out for number 2 on offense when we play Notre Dame. Well, that's actually kind of interesting because I didn't even think about that till right now. Number 2 is Ruben Owens' number. So which I guess it doesn't matter right now with Ruben being out, but if Terry's going to play offense, For this season, it's fine. He can just be number two, offense, defense, no big deal. But uh, Ruben may have something to say about that as far as numbers go next year when he comes back. But at receiver, I think there's still a battle there. You've seen some clips of Micah Tease, the sophomore out of Oklahoma, in some highlight clips, making contested grabs. Got called out by Colin Klein in the presser as having a really impressive showing so far. But I think, it's Noah Thomas who sounds like he's still, still ascending, fully healthy, all that good stuff. And then that mix of guys like Jade Walker, like Cyrus Allen, Moose Muhammad, those types. But could a guy like Micah Tease work his way into the mix? Got some great speed. So that's five guys right there, plus Terry Bussey, and I think they like these young guys quite a bit. In fact, that's kind of a little tangent I need to get into real quick. For so many years under Jimbo Fisher, we just didn't have receivers like at all, like guys who even looked like receivers or even played the position very well. And we had some good ones, over the last 6 years, but it just seems like we took some good athletes and not necessarily some good polished true receivers, guys who can run routes, guys who can, get open and catch the football and not fight the ball. I think they are getting more to that. I think all the true freshmen, Isaiah Williams, great speed. When you see Ashton Bethel Roman on the just going through drills, and not that he's going to be an All-American, but he just looks a little different than what we've had at the position. We've kind of had some big tall guys, straight line speed guys, or little kind of sub 6 foot slot types, and just kind of had to play them on the outside. I think like a Chase Lane. Chase Lane probably could have been a really good slot here, but we just didn't have any guys, and he had to play outside. That's just the way it was. But I'm just really, I'm really impressed with because both those guys, Isaiah Williams and Bethel Roman, were both guys that Mike Elko flipped or got committed after he got here. So he's already got two in the 2025 class, both speedsters as well. So I think speed, I think just pure receiving ability, like a player that actually knows how to play the position. I think you're going to see a lot more of that going forward. But I mean, I'm excited to see what this group can do once they get once they take the field against Notre Dame, because that's a great secondary, probably the best one they're going to see all year. I'm really optimistic about what they can do, and not, I think cautiously so. I don't think we're going to have the best receiving core in the country, but we have guys that can get open, that can make plays, that Colin Klein can kind of scheme open. You hear about drops. Can these guys catch the football on a consistent basis? And I don't know. That remains to be seen. But got a comment from T. Ricky Son. Yeah, I agree. It seems more complete, and I'm gonna do maybe a article about this or a show about this. But there's a handful of coaches that you see that, and Elko's one of them, and I think Sarkisian is too, along with Jed Fish at Washington. But guys who run their team kind of like an NFL team, and obviously like Georgia and Ohio State and those guys do this, but I feel like they get a lot of just the ultra highly rated kids, which that's the goal, of course. But if you can't get that, then you go after the NFL measurables and projectability. You go after 6'6" offensive linemen with long arms and quick feet. You go after, maybe not the fastest receivers, which we are doing, but, kids who are polished route runners, cornerbacks who are 6 foot plus, but can still run and cover and know how to turn their heads and look for the ball, which we haven't seen. So just something to kind of think about. Something I've noticed with Elko and some other coaches, but I think it's interesting, the way that, if you can't go and get a 5-star at every position, which in the NIL world is pretty much impossible, then you have to have some other kind of, some other evaluation skills. And not that coaches are looking at the ratings, but you have to be able to go out there and find the not even the diamonds in the rough, but the 4 stars and the high 3 stars that fit what you're looking for and that fit your program and your culture and all that good stuff. But I think the roster does seem more complete. Absolutely. Just look at the number of defensive backs we have. Last year we're looking at, hey, we got a transfer from North Carolina. Never played a snap all last year. Sam McCall played sparingly, and we're counting on, 2 true freshman corners, a transfer nickel corner who we have to put on the outside because we don't have anybody. We have 3 safeties and nothing else. We've got, 18 defensive linemen, which is great. I love a great D line, but let's go and get the heavy hitters at other spots. Yes, Jimbo absolutely looked at the ratings. That's in an article on The Athletic by Sam Kahn. Jimbo and his buddies and the other coaches would, during 2022, they would start typing in on the class calculator, who can we get to get the number 1 class in history, which is dumb. And you see where that got us, and some of the knuckleheads that came in with that. And not that Elko will never offer a knucklehead. I'm sure he will, but it's going to be a very measured risk and not go all in on the Denver Harrises and Chris Marshalls of the world. So I think that's behind us. Asian Persuasion, a.k.a. Jeb. Hoping that we'll see Barber early can be a good replacement for Anias. I think so too. I think they were counting on that. I think he had just shy of 1,000 yards at Troy last season. And from everyone you talk to, he was going to be a big part of the offense, probably a very likely starter at the slot position, with Noah and Jade out wide. But it stinks he got hurt. I think he can still come back and contribute this season, which makes it really interesting when you look at the schedule. You get past Notre Dame, and you can kind of start to see where you can manage your way until October, and then maybe Terry Bussey has come along on offense. Maybe Jabri Barber is fully healthy and practicing and running and feels good. I'm just saying the team could look a little bit like this team should get better each week. Like, I know we always say that, but new coaches, new systems, a lot of new players who have not played together. It's not going to look super crisp and clean against Notre Dame, on offense especially. Defensively, I think they'll be fine in that game. But offense, you might see some miscues. Maybe, blocking the wrong guys, not running the right route. Just general, just not always knowing every single play and every nuance of every play. And just maybe we drop some passes here and there, against Notre Dame. But I think this is a team that should get better as the year goes on. That's the hope. So we'll see how that goes. But another big thing on the offensive line, some people, myself included, had a miniature meltdown last week when people were talking about some movement on the O-line, moving the Kansas transfer, Armaje Reed Adams from right guard to right tackle. That's really the only concerning part, because here's the 2 options that we're looking at right here. The way that it sounds. So left tackle is Trey Zune. That's set in stone. No ifs, ands, or buts. Left guard is Chase Pasantis. I think he's going to be outstanding this season. And then center, right guard, and right tackle, it appears to be, and there's probably some other combinations that are possibilities, but the primary 2 are Mark Naboo, third-year guy at center, started every game at left guard a year ago. So Naboo at center, Reed Adams from Kansas at right guard, and Fothery in his fourth season, fully healthy, at right tackle. That's my projection and what we thought we would see coming in. In the first scrimmage and in some other practices that you've been able to see on the videos on Twitter, it's been the Utah transfer, Cooley, at center, Naboo at right guard, and then Reed Adams at right tackle. That worried me when I first heard about it. I'm like, okay, I've seen Ruben play. I've seen Ruben Fothery play. I saw him play in the spring, and outside of a couple of plays, handled himself pretty well against Nick Scorton, who will likely be a first round draft pick. And then we get to camp and we're like, oh, this other guy who's been a guard might be a better tackle than Fothery. And I'm like, okay, has Fothery, has he gotten worse? Has he regressed? Like, is he not playing up to his standard? Like, what's the deal? And I don't think it's that at all. It's very likely that the coaches are just trying to. I think this is what it is. They really like Reed Adams. They like him a lot. He's going to start somewhere. They just don't know where. And at Kansas last year, he played, I think, 9 games. He started at left guard and then played pretty well at left guard. Some other guys got hurt, and then he finished out the year at right tackle and wasn't as clean out there. But that could be a function of just not practicing that position. You're like playing guard all year, and then the last 2 games, they're like, oh, we need you on the outside in a totally different, situation. So what I'll tell you about Reed Adams is I think his best fit is at guard. I think he can be a very good one in this league for this team. But he's got long arms. He's 6'5", 330. He's got the long arms. He's got pretty good feet. He could play tackle if you need him to. And if this team needs him to, I don't think it's the end of the world. Like I may have thought it was last week when I first heard that. So, and they're still looking at it. Like they're still practicing, and the coaches are looking at film, looking at practice and scrimmages, trying to get the best fit. So, if they roll out against Notre Dame with Reed Adams at right tackle, then you have to trust him that that's the right decision. So, but for me, man, I think he's just such a killer guard, and to have a guard who's 330, verified, very good run blocker, and then on the other side you have Chase Basantis at left guard, who I think is going to be an all SEC caliber player. I mean, then you can really do some damage in the run game and take the heat off of Connor Wigman and these receivers that may take a second to click. So that's 30,000 foot view from a guy with a podcast who does not watch practice. That's what I would like to see. But if the best option is to, and who knows about center, if Cooley from Utah, if he is a, you look at him and like you're like, okay, that's a true center right there. He's like 6'1" or 2, just huge base, an immovable object. I could see where he could be a really good center and be kind of a mauler in the run game. But it just comes down to what they want to do. So we don't know. They don't know. I would probably assume. But what I do think, and what gives me hope most of all, is you look at last season and like scouts on Twitter you see a lot of clips from the Miami game of Connor Wigman and just making ridiculous throws with defenders right in his face. And you look at our offensive line just leaving wide open gaps for linebackers and DBs and whoever else just come screaming in, from the secondary, from the second level, and just take our quarterback's head off, just time and time and time again. And that I think I think this team will eradicate that and not have those issues. The play where Connor got hurt, where our right guard is just so late getting back to his gap, trying to help out on the edge, and defender just blows right by him. And I just think this group is a little more, a little bit quicker and they're going to be way, way better coached. Like under the new regime. So that gives me a lot of hope. But so that's OL, that's receiver. Defense. I mean, I've got a thought that I've been holstering. I think I told somebody this weekend, but if this secondary comes together like I think it can, and this defensive line plays to the ability that we know they have, this could be the best A&M defense since 1998. You know, I think you have two true A-plus pass rushers. Actually, you may have three with Cassius Howell. Some big bodies at defensive tackle, big disruptive guys like Shamar Turner. I love what Albert Regis can do. You hear he's kind of pushing to be heavily in the mix, which is shocking to no one. And then David Hicks, and man, just keep an eye. When I talk about a team getting better and players getting better throughout the year, don't sleep on number 99, Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy. Has been hurt a lot, was hurt in the spring, came in hurt off an ACL, but is just built like a brick, you know what. I mean, maybe him and Shamar Stewart are probably the two most physically impressive players that have come through A&M in a long time, since the days of Myles Garrett. And, I think he's probably getting his feet under him. And, I think once he starts getting game reps, the guy hasn't played, he just hasn't played in games. And he's just a guy I've got circled. I think his ability is up there with anybody on this roster. And when you can spell Shamar Turner and David Hicks and Albert Regis and be like, okay, guys, take a breather. We're going to put Brownlow-Dindy in, and he's going to rip people's heads off, So just something to watch as we go forward. But at the second level at linebacker, Tarian York, stud, leader, beast, whatever you want to call him. He's the guy. I think he's your defensive captain. He's a team captain as voted on by his peers. The battle next to him, I think, is so interesting because you have a second-year guy in Damian Sanford, who is super athletic, was laying people out in the spring game, still trying to learn the position and learn the defense as a second-year guy, played some on the edge in high school. And then Scooby Williams. It could mean nothing, it could mean something that Scooby Williams spoke to the media, was one of the players that, the coaches sent to the media on Saturday. I think he's a fourth-year guy, 21, 22, 23. Yeah, fourth-year guy. I'm fairly certain, maybe a third year, but has been with Coach Jay Bateman throughout his career at Florida and then followed him over here. I was trying to go back through and watch some tape of really just Florida in general, but then the guys we got from them with Scooby Williams and Jaden Hill. And against Tennessee, you can see it with Scooby. He's a big athletic dude, top 100 recruit when he was coming out, just trying to get it to click at linebacker. I believe he's another guy that played a lot, as an outside backer, kind of an edge guy in high school, trying to learn to play off the ball, read and react, shed, fill gaps. And when it all clicks for him, you can see it on film. Like he will get downhill in a hurry and just and put a hit on somebody. But it's just doing that on a consistent basis and, not missing an assignment, not missing a gap and letting a, running back go for 30 yards behind you. And not that he's going to do that consistently or even that he did it last year. But I think he's got the physical ability. It's just if he's learning the defense and coming along as a inside linebacker, he could be a good one. I like him a lot. But and then you've got Solomon DeShields, who started for Pitt last year, played a lot. Kind of an interesting player. Like he kind of played almost like a nickel for them, like a in the box kind of defender. He's not an overly big guy, but would kind of shoot the gap and make some plays in the backfield. I think he's battling there, but and I'm sure he'll get some playing time. But I've got my eye on Scooby. I've got my eye on Sanford. In the secondary, sounds like obviously Bryce is your alpha dog back there at free safety. Um, I'm big on Dalton Brooks. If he doesn't start at strong safety, I think he's your first guy off the bench as a nickel, dime package type of guy. And I think in general, you're going to see maybe 7 or 8 defensive backs get in the game, even against Notre Dame, just trying different guys out. Des Ricks missed all of spring. Sounds like he's starting to figure it out. Former 5-star player, former Alabama cornerback. So yeah, there's a lot to like back there, and that's why, I said that about about our defense, being the best in a while, and Kyle's like, hey, let's just have, in the comments, Kyle says, let's just have the defense of the past 15 years, the best defense of the past 15 years, which yeah, that'd be awesome if we could even accomplish that because we've had some dang good ones, but the difference for me is not. It is the defensive line, and I think really more the ability to rush the passer. But even more than that, it's the secondary. I don't think we've had this much speed or depth or just just pure number of players who I think the coaches probably feel good about putting in a game if they had to. I mean, at corner alone, like you have a true 2.5 to 3 deep with Des Ricks, Will Lee, B.J. Mays, uh, Tyreek Chappelle, which he's playing more nickel. I think that's confirmed in the press conference, which I love, by the way. Tyreek has always been able to hit people and been a plus factor in the run game, and a good coverage corner as well. But maybe can get some better matchups playing in the slot. And yeah, I think he can lay the wood in the run game. So that's enticing. But behind him, Jaden Hill, Bravion Rogers. Javon Thomas, second year guy, getting a lot of love at corner. He's making a push. There's just so many guys where last year we were like, okay, we have a great D line, although we don't know who can actually rush the passer consistently. But no one's going to run on us, which they really didn't. But in the secondary, we just didn't. There just wasn't much going on back there, and having to rely on true freshmen and guys playing out of position and transfers that didn't factor in at all, or were even healthy, some of them. It was very dire, and I think the 180, like contrast to this season, is just a complete 180 on the back end. I think if you've tuned out for a while, even if you haven't, like I follow this is as close as I possibly can, and I'm gonna see guys out there and be like, oh crap, like we have some corners now, like we got guys that are 6'2", 6'3", can turn and run, can make plays uh, in the running game as well, and can turn their heads and deflect passes and intercept passes. I'm not saying this is the Legion of Boom or that we're going to go and, allow 0 passing yards every game and just shut teams down. But I think it's a good secondary. You pair a capable secondary with an elite defensive line, and I think you got something special there. So that's where my my optimism comes from as far as best defense in a while. Okay, so 33 minutes in, we I was really afraid that this would be over in 20 minutes. I would just give you all my fall camp stuff and we'd be out of here. Um, but that's pretty much it. Uh, I'm really just kind of sitting here waiting on and it's like you're not gonna have a coach announce, oh, it's not like a quarterback, like oh, you know, Connor Whitman's our starting quarterback. Everybody knows that, but he's not gonna hold a press conference or even announce, oh, Reuben Father's our starting right tackle. Like I think we're not gonna know until we take the field against Notre Dame. But um, as far as our coverage here and our content here, um, I think I'm going to try to get Robert on next week to do a kind of a season, you know, preseason superlative, preseason, you know, just like prediction type of show and that kind of thing. But John Perone, I hope the O line is a lot better than the last 3 years. Amen, brother. I mean, I've I brought this up a couple different times, but when you look at the pressure rates allowed for offensive lines over the last 3 years, over the last 2 seasons, among Power Five offensive lines, A&M has two of the five worst in that time period among all Power Five. I mean, that's the teams that suck too. You know, that's not just Bama, Georgia, Ole Miss, Ohio State. That's, you know, Syracuse and Illinois and Rutgers. You know, and no offense to those teams, and I'm sure they've got great coaches and whatnot, but for A&M to have the talent that it does and have two of the worst O lines at protecting the quarterback in the last 2 years, that's abysmal. I mean, it's a shock that even that that Adazio was even retained after the first year, and that's probably what ultimately got Jimbo fired. T. Rickison says Durkin would have dropped Scorton into coverage. What's funny is that Purdue did that with him last year, and I wrote a post about this back in the spring that not only would Nick Scorton have a better, I guess, exposure, you know, playing for A&M and on what should be a pretty good team, but I think he was kind of misused. And what's crazy is he still had 10 sacks and he still had like 40 some odd pressures playing a 3-4 outside linebacker who would drop into coverage. He also played like 600 snaps or 650, which for a defensive end, like that's a ton. You know, like that's not coming off the field at all. And, you know, I think he could outdo his numbers from last year just based off of being in a better system, being like he's a true 4-3 defensive end. And I think he's going to be able to get a breather from time to time with guys like, you know, Malik Silla, Cassius Howell, even a guy like Joshua Seliskar from UCF. Keep an eye out for him. But yeah, obviously love Scorton. Back to the O-line. I meant to finish that thought off with I think it will be. I don't think it's going to be the line of 2020 that competed for the Joe Moore Award. I don't think that. I mean, that's possible, but I'm not predicting that. But if we just have guys that block who they're supposed to, pick up who they're supposed to, pick up stunts and twists and things like that, and not leave wide open gaps and get our quarterback's head taken off 10 times a game, I think that's very much possible and likely, I think, at this point. So yeah, buy, sell, hold. I teased this earlier. What guy outside of the top guys is your favorite surprise? Okay, Kyle, I can do that. Sticking with A&M, who am I buying post fall camp? Who? I feel like I can't say Chase Basantis. I've given him too much love already. I bought him back in the spring when I saw the spring game. I think he's terrific. I think I'm buying Des Ricks. I'm buying the former 5-star corner from Alabama. True sophomore, transferred in the spring, missed the whole spring with injury. Sounds like he's really battling to start, you know, from day one and get on the field pretty early. He does not look like a corner that we have had maybe since I've been following this, and not that he's going to be the best corner that we've ever had, anything like that. But you look at the guy, and I bet I don't know what he's even listed at. I think I got the roster pulled up, but they have him at 6'1". No, he's bigger than that. They list him at 6'1", 195. He's every bit of 6'3", and probably 195, 200 pounds. He's a big corner, super athletic, long arms. He's making a push. Sounds like that'd be my kind of under the radar buy right now. Love Dalton Brooks though. Love Terry Bussey. We'll see how it goes. But I want to do some buy, sell, hold on a national level. We'll probably talk a little more national next week because we haven't done it at all really on this show. We've talked about, you know, the schedule and SEC stuff like that, but nothing really, you know, we haven't done any playoff stuff, you know, any conference champions, things like that. But I do want to do a buy sell hold before we get out of here today, and the team I'm selling, and it's not sour grapes because I think this team and A&M have a bit of a not really a cold war, but just kind of a general dislike of each other. But I'm selling Florida State, and looking at the AP poll, Florida State comes in at 10th in the country. They were really, really good last year. They lost a ton, and you saw it when Jordan Travis went down. They weren't the same team. Probably should have made the playoff. Not even going to get into that topic, but they bring in DJ Uiagalelei, who is still playing, still has eligibility. Has bounced around a couple different places, and I think he's a fine quarterback. He's not going to, make a huge difference, but I think what's going to hurt them is and they have some guys at receiver. I like Malik Benson a lot. He's a blazing fast kid who was a JUCO, went to Bama last year and then transferred to Florida State. But and I don't even have their schedule pulled up. I don't know what their schedule is, but I think just from how good they are, level of play, from like I don't think they're the 10th best team in the country, to be quite honest. I could see them maybe not falling out of the top 25 altogether. I'd have to see their schedule to say that, but not a team that I'm betting on to do a whole lot. I'm going to hold Penn State, and Penn State, a hold position is probably the most Penn State thing you can do because there is no other team that that beats the teams they're better than and loses to the teams they're not as good as Penn State. They are the kings of that. And people dog on James Franklin as not being a good head coach. Like, he does what he's supposed to. Like, I know that Penn State is a historic program, and I'm sure of course, they want to eventually win the whole thing and improve as a program. But if your floor is just beating who you're supposed to and winning the Rose Bowl or whatever bowl game ever so often, like, what's wrong with that, And then if they can just get a quarterback, that's why I'm holding. Like, I would have sold them, coming into this season, but they went and got the offensive coordinator from Kansas, who I think is a very, very innovative and fun OC. And they got some guys, and they got a quarterback that's talented, former 5-star Drew Allar. They got some good running backs. They got Julian Fleming, a former 5-star receiver from Ohio State. Didn't really play to that level at Ohio State, but talented nonetheless. They got some dudes on defense. Abdul Carter, yeah, first round pick right there. Anyone that Penn State puts in the number 11, they're probably pretty good. So, yeah, good defense, great running backs, a talented quarterback, at least physically. Really intrigued by what that OC can do with that offense because they've been like A&M in a sense that they're boring on offense, but they get the results that they're supposed to. So I'm going to hold there. I'm not going to sell them just yet. Time for my buy. Thanks, Ellen. It's my Aunt Ellen commenting. Love hearing me talk about this. The knowledge and the passion. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. My buy. So I struggle with this because I, of course, would buy A&M at their current value of, the AP number 20 team in the country. But I'm going to buy Miami. I'm going to buy the Hurricanes. And I know, and believe me, I don't like doing it because I think Cristobal, if Cristobal is my head coach, if I'm the AD, or if I'm a owner of an NFL team, and my coach does what Cristobal did against Georgia Tech last year, and hands the ball off when you can kneel it and win the game, and then fumble and then lose, that's firing on the spot. Like, I cannot tolerate something like that. But you look at their roster, big NIL, not to take anything away from them, but big NIL budget. I think they likely have the best quarterback in the ACC with Cam Ward coming over from Washington State, Texas kid. Played at Incarnate Word in San Antonio. I think he played like a wing tee offense. No one knew he could throw. And then he got to Incarnate Word, and they're like, holy crap, this kid's amazing. Some NFL draft buzz around Cam Ward. I think he's pretty special. Damian Martinez. Sorry about the Pac-2, Kyle, but their best remaining players all went to Miami, it appears. Great running back. I think he's a Texas kid as well, if I'm not mistaken. I like their receivers. I love Restrepo. I think he's a baller. They got a really good O-line, and they got some guys on defense who are some playmakers as well. I think in the ACC, it's kind of down. I mean, there's, I don't think Clemson. I think Clemson recruits very, very well at the high school level. For whatever reason, Dabo refuses to take transfers. I don't know why that is. It's going to hold him back. It's going to hold them back forever if he keeps doing that. And I loved Cade Klubnik coming out, but I haven't seen it yet from him. So I got to see more to buy into Clemson. My father-in-law, Brian Graham, says buy Oregon, national champ contender. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a very clear top three of Georgia, Ohio State, and Oregon. I think they are a clear cut above everyone else in the country at this moment. Got Dylan Gabriel, Oregon did from Oklahoma. He's going to kill it in that offense. I mean, what I don't know about Oregon is I'm sure they're going to be good at the skill spots, but the best thing about them is I like their coach a lot. They got a great quarterback. They got a great O-line. Their defense should still be pretty good. So yeah, I'm in on them. They also big on the NIL. Did a great job in the transfer portal, kind of filling some gaps on their roster. But yeah, Ohio State is absolutely loaded. Georgia's Georgia, so yeah, I mean, I'd buy all those teams, no doubt. But if you're looking for a team that could, I mean, that's the thing now. The ACC champ will get a bye week in the playoff, So Miami, if they play Florida week 1, I think, in my opinion, I think they smash Florida. I don't think Florida's that good at all. I think Miami has a lot going for it. Really intrigued by that game, week 1. But yeah, I mean, in the ACC, it's pretty much, I think the top 3 is pretty clear with Clemson, Florida State, Miami, and I don't know, man. I'm picking the Canes. I'm riding with them, but we'll go ahead and call it a day, call it a show. We'll get back with you guys on Wednesday. I'm looking at a guest, talking to a guest, so we'll see what comes to fruition. But that's where things are at right now. I think, man, and I'm gonna get into it, hopefully next Monday, but I'm in a pretty good spot with this team right now. I know we say it every year. I've said it every year we've gotten on here. Last year was more of a demand on my end. Like, hey, if we don't, like, I know what this team has. If they don't hit this mark, then it's over with. And they didn't even come close. So this year, I'm looking at it. I look at the team. I look at the schedule, and I'm like, man, this team has so much going for it, and the schedule is so forgiving in a lot of ways that yeah, I'm pretty psyched. So we should check out goodbullhunting.com, our GBH roundtable where we all give our thoughts and predictions. Just a couple paragraphs each, record predictions, bowl predictions, stuff like that from us. But yeah, we'll talk a lot more about this A&M team next week. Next week is game week, man. Get excited. But yeah. Look for the guest on Wednesday. I'm not going to say who it is. Need to iron that out and get that set in stone. But we'll be around 8 o'clock, and then got some other things that we're looking at. So thanks so much for hanging out and tagging along. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and Apple Podcasts and Spotify, all that good stuff. Thank you guys so much, and talk to you soon.